unity that brings us together. UMOJA, unity that brings us together. UMOJA, unity that brings us together. KUJICHAGULIA, KUJICHAGULIA. We will determine KUJICHAGULIA. We will determine KUJICHAGULIA. We will
Greetings, beloved. How are you doing? Oh my God, the end of the year, it's here. It's the end of December. It's the end of 2021. Whew, and it's been a year, right? Right. But we are now in the season of first fruits, the Kwanzaa celebration. And did you know that those 7-day principles are not just things that you do for 7 days and say, ooh, and listen to a wonderful speech and talk about it, but these are actually things that you can incorporate into your life and do them for 365 days. Peace and blessings, beloveds. Welcome to Culture and Dining with Adaye. Welcome to my world. Today we are going to talk about Kwanzaa and the principles, those 7 principles. Kwanzaa is the celebration of 7 principles and looking back and being reflective. If you've done these things, have you given back? Have you stood on some morals? Or are you working as a collective? Right? So Maulana created this celebration in the late 60s, and boom, it slowly snowballed, and it has become this big celebration that we see now, where people celebrate it all over, right? Not just in California where it originated, but right? So let me just give you a real short story. I grew up in a small community where everybody knew everybody, and you were taught to respect your elders, and with that, you also knew that elders looked out for you. You knew that no matter where you were in the community, that there was some elder, even if that elder was a teenager, that was looking out for you and made sure that you were okay wherever it was that you went. And I just knew that. I knew that I could sit down and talk to an elder and be told that I could be anything, do anything, but at the same time, whatever I did and was, it should be something that uplifted my people, uplifted my family. I grew up understanding that I had a purpose. There was something God wanted me to do, and I should stand in my faith. I should stand in whatever creative abilities that I had, and know that those things God expected from me, not just to hoard it to myself, but to give it out to the world as a whole, right? I was taught that if I was tithing, I was given not just 10%, but I was giving part of my time and my talent, right? So think about that. My time, my talent. So, what are the 7 principles of Kwanzaa? The very first principle of Kwanzaa is UMOJA, which means unity. So when we look at what that means as an individual, how does your body work together? It means looking at what you are doing within your body, how your body operates. That's the first unit that you want to have unified, is your body, mind, and spirit, right? So then you can be in relationships with people within a family unit. Then you can be within a community unit and operate. You know that there is a group of people with which you think the same, you believe the same, you have a certain moral and fabric and standard by which you live and operate. You stand unified in these things. The second principle, which is the second day of Kwanzaa, is the principle called KUJICHAGULIA, which means self-determination. Self-determination means you can decide for yourself how you define yourself. How do you see yourself? How do you express yourself? Again, things are related not to just oneself, but how you operate within your community. So, how do you define yourself as an individual, and how do you define yourself within the community based on the unification? UMOJA, KUJICHAGULIA. And then we have the third principle, which is UJIMA, which means collective work and responsibility. Remember when I said that I lived in a community where I was responsible to the elders in my community, and those elders were responsible to me as well? That meant that no matter where I went, there was always an elder door that I could go to. If I wanted to talk, if I just wanted to drop something off to them because another elder said, go take this over to Miss this or Miss that, or if I was on my way to my grandfather's house, I was stopping at some elder's house and knocking on the door because they always had to look at collective work and responsibility. For me, that meant if an elder needed something, I took the time to go to the store for that elder, to clean for that elder. Because she, on the flip side, and her responsibility to me was looking out for me to be a symbiotic relationship between the youth and the adults, because we work hand in hand. There's an African proverb that says, there are some places where the elder's hand can't get and the young person's hand can. There are some places that an elder's hand can reach that the young person's cannot. So through the collective work and responsibility to each other, you foster greater unity. Go back to that word, unity, within the family and the community. And then we have the fourth principle, which is UJIMA, which means cooperative economics. Now this one right here, besides KUJICHAGULIA, might be my favorite one, especially because of the time in which I grew up. I grew up in an era when we did not go necessarily to the stores that were predominantly for, just to be real blunt, for the white community. They didn't want us in their stores, and there were some people like my grandfather who said, okay, you don't want me in your store, I won't go in your store. No, I will not go to the back door. And so people like that and communities like that, because they decided for themselves that they would have the self-determination to be respected. And in such, they created their own businesses. where you go back to collective work and responsibility. So now we have an exchange of monies between the people within the community for the services that were needed by the businesses within the community. So we had thriving communities like Rosewood, like within the community of Greenwood, like in parts of 3rd Ward and 5th Ward, places within this city of Houston where there were booming black businesses. Near your purpose. What is it that you came to do? How did you come to express who you are within this incarnation, within this life? Are you standing in your purpose? Are you doing what you really love to do, even if it goes against the grain? Even if it means you're doing something that nobody else in your family is doing, has done, ever thought about doing? How do you express your purpose? That principle is called Kuumba. That is creativity. When you look at your creativity, a lot of times people think about arts in the respect of visual artists, writers, musicians, those type of people that have an artistry is being created. But sometimes that person who plays with numbers, they have a certain level of creativity as well. That person who designs cakes or do something as simple as quilting, that's creativity. May not be always what is seen as a norm, but if you can take something that nobody else can see how it's gonna work and make it turn into something that works, you got some creativity. And then there is the principle of Imani, which is faith. How do you see God? What is the expression of your relationship with God? Now, to be real honest, I actually believe that God is not limited to just one expression of how that energy manifests itself. I'll say that like that. And there is an expression that happens between the two, and things come and grow and be when you have that relationship with whatever name it is that you go by and call it. You are endeavoring to live life as best you can, then yeah, boo, you're gonna be all right. So let's rewind that, right? So first of all, we're looking at unity. How can you look at being unified in your life? How do you define yourself? What is your self-determination? How do you work and play well with others? How are you helping to build economics within your community with people who look like you? How are you living your purpose? How are you standing in your creativity? How are you expressing your faith? What are you standing on? And so if you just really be real for real, you probably have looked at these things within your life and kind of sort of grew up on them and just didn't realize, because it wasn't until the late 80s that I found out, mid to late 80s, when I found out about Kwanzaa, that it became codified and became something that I did as a ritual, as a yearly thing that I celebrated the season of first fruits and Kwanzaa. Because, to be real honest with you, I didn't like the commercialization of Christmas. Yeah. And I didn't want to give that to my children. So I was looking for something different. And finding Kwanzaa in an Essence magazine gave me an alternative to doing something that was based on some principles and values by which I was already living, and because that's the way I was taught. And the other thing that Kwanzaa gave me, and again, I would put in the description more about how you can find out about the part of Kwanzaa where you go into how it's celebrated, what that ritual looks like. The part of the ritual which includes a libation, that's what pulled me in really, really deep, because it was a way of paying homage to my ancestors and calling their names in a very specific kind of way that celebrated them. Thank you for taking a moment to watch this, how reaffirming the principles of Kwanzaa can help your life. Thank you for watching Kwanzaa. What is the Nguzo Saba? The 7 principles. This is Adepeju of Culture and Dining with Adeaye. Peace and blessings.